am with the State Board of Elections as chair. I think with the State Board of Elections, you only need to list 2 positions. I think it's the chair and the treasurer. And then I am one of the co-chairs on the
so what does the position entail? What do you do in that position?
Oh my God. Well, I really wish. Okay, so I can give you the whole spiel. The Maryland Green Party has been quite a shit show, and we are in damage control right now, working out of that. So I became co-chair and chair recently. We just had our past election. June 26th was our annual general assembly. And it was virtual because of COVID. And we had some great presenters talking about trans rights and fighting for trans rights because transphobia has been a huge problem in the Green Party globally. You're in Europe.
It's I didn't know it was a global thing. Wow.
Yes, it's a huge problem in with the European Green Party right now. One of their leadership members had actually said, I want to say it's Sion Berry. I may have not said that right. They stepped down because they felt like they could not uproot the transphobia within the Green Party there. So like, this is a problem that I want to be very upfront and vocal about, because this is something that if we just keep it in the shadows, it's not going to get addressed. It's not going to get fixed. And we pride ourselves in transformative justice and being allies. And we need to promote our values, and we need to stand by our trans comrades. And
and I remember we were both in one of those calls about the Georgia Green Party, an organizing call where we were talking about, and just for context for anybody who doesn't know, in the Georgia Green Party, they had, voted on, put something in their platform. Can you describe that exactly?
I think it was amendments. They passed amendments that were complete violations against trans rights. And I don't know the specifics of exactly. I just know the Georgia Green Party was becoming like very outright transphobic. And there was a proposal to discredit them, and I believe that passed to like take away their credentials. So now I think what they're working on is rebuilding that party, trying to get their credentials back.
Yeah, and I think
or accredited.
So they were Turfism in their party, so trans exclusionary radical feminism. And so it was basically, they believed in the idea that trans women, weaken the rights of women or step on the rights of women. And so I think that was the big thing. Lots of dialogue had happened. They weren't willing to change that position at all. Most of the Green Party voted to disband the Georgia Green Party because of it. They were saying we should have dialogue instead. We shouldn't be banning people. But at the same time, it's a political party, right? It's not, if you have a state party in your political party that's fundamentally out of line with what most of the party believes in, that's not the same political party anymore at that point. And I know you were saying there was something similar happening in the Maryland party where allies of the Georgia Green Party had been running for leadership positions in the Maryland Green Party. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So what you're also talking about is like that there wanted to be dialogue. There was a group specifically created for that called Dialogue Not Expulsion, DNE. And so to start off, we had a member of the Maryland Green Party who had a position on on the national GPUS, and they made some like really transphobic remarks. And I believe it was through the listserv at the national. And there was a vote to recall them from their national position. I forget. There was a vote to recall them from their national position, and it failed, but they resigned from their state position. But they were still a member. They were still like a delegate to the national party or something like that. They were still in a leadership role. So they still are in a leadership role right now. This is very difficult for me to be having to, deal with someone that has made these comments and has not, there's
and
not
do we
been the
know
right
exactly
remedies.
what was said? Like, are you able to say exactly what they had said? Like, what was it? I'm curious because I don't think I ever heard it.
It was, oh my God, I can't even remember. It was just like horrifically graphic language, basically saying like lesbians are blaming trans women for raping them and stuff. It was disgusting. It was disgusting.
Oh, like he believed that. Like he was actually like parroting like that line about it.
Yes. And so this turfism is all part of the, what is it? Radical gender feminist.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact term for it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't give a fuck because you are not a feminist if you do not include trans women. So I didn't pay much mind of that. And I had never even heard of TERF until I got more involved. Because how I got involved with the Green Party, we can cover that. But long story short, I got involved in 2018, ran for state delegate, and then due to my mental health, resigned. And then was like dealing with that and working. And then the 2020 election happened and I got back involved with the Green Party at a local level. And then they were like, yo, like this is what's happening with the Green Party. And would you be interested in running for like co-chair? And I was like, yeah, sure. I would definitely be interested, like whatever to remedy the situation, because I was absolutely not for having any TERFs in any leadership roles. So that's kind of how I came back to be involved and have this position with the Green Party. And it's been tough. It's been challenging. Like I said, we're like really just doing damage control. We are, I made a proposal for an emergency assembly. So we're having that in November, and we're going to have all these bylaw changes then. We're going to be launching a young eco-socialist chapter then. And we're going to be, doing an assembly, because the last one was, we had some great speakers, and then the announcements for the elections was totally butchered, and then it was immediately ended, so no one could ask any questions. It was so fucked up. Sorry, excuse my language.
That's okay.
But this is going to be like an open space for the emergency assembly to like, kind of do that right again. And have everything with our election settled by then, remedy everything with our bylaws, really, really fix a lot of the problems here. But this is going to be a complete work in progress for the foreseeable future.
Besides the TERF issue, what are some other problems that you'd say are going on right now at the Maryland Green Party? The
bylaws suck. They are so vague. And because they're so vague, they've been like taken advantage of for so long. Like for a perfect example, like with our past election, with the slate I ran on, we had a second membership coordinator, which has been in use for like the past 4 years, but there was never an official bylaw amendment that was passed to add a second membership coordinator, which is like on legal paperwork with the State Board of Elections that we have one membership coordinator. Like, it should be really, by the book, and it should
be necessary for ballot access reasons.
Right. Like these are just rules that should be followed. And they haven't been, and they've been taken advantage of. And we just need to totally rectify these issues by doing a total bylaw upheaval and addressing each and every one of them, which is what we're doing right now. So as part of getting the emergency assembly going, we've reactivated our bylaws and rules committee, which I'm on, and the assembly committee. So, like on the bylaws committee, we just had our first meeting the other night, and our next one's Tuesday night, I think. And we're going to be talking about, just like going through each of the bylaws, like literally going through bylaw by bylaw and saying like, okay, how does this sound? Like, do we need to remedy this? But it's tedious. It sucks. It's not my favorite part.
In terms of getting ballot access, like how many people are members of the Green Party now? Like when do you have to start doing that for 2022 or 2024? Like what's the timeline for that type of thing?
I know we already have ballot access right now. But that is not true for all 50 states. but Maryland right now, we still have ballot access, but I don't remember what the specifics are around that. But I know it can be very easily lost. And it takes them out like a certain amount of members. And if you do lose it, I think when I was running in 2018, we had just lost it or something. And we had to like get a petition of like,
I remember my membership had gone from like Green Party to Independent Green or something. So it wasn't considered the official Green Party anymore.
Okay. I think we might have had, I think for that, if we lose ballot access, we need to get like a petition of like, I don't know why this number's coming to my head, but I feel like 10,000 signatures, like a lot.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I know they lowered some limits in certain states for like coronavirus restrictions and stuff, but I know that was definitely like a big problem. Yeah. And so like, let's shift gears to like in general. So like why the Green Party as opposed to the Democratic Party for one? Why aren't you trying to take over the Democratic Party like the progressives say? And then why the Green Party maybe as opposed to MPP or PSL or CPUSA, you know, what's your mindset?
Okay. I want to be very clear about something. I have never been or have liked the Democrats. Never, ever, 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 ever. I have always considered myself a very independent, free thinker. Sorry, I'm looking up something for the Green Party right now that I want to talk about. Okay. I've always questioned, even when I didn't know it, but what I now know is the establishment. I've always questioned it because I've always been a little rebel questioning authority and fighting it. And yeah, so I think that's part of us leftists. Like we've always kind of had that little rebel in us, like, you know, like angsty revolutionary spirit in us. Oh my God, it's not working, of course. I should know most of them, but I was looking up our 10 key values. But so I have never, ever, ever been a Democrat, never liked the Democrats. When I was first able to vote, before my first engagement in the political sphere was when I was able to vote in 2016, and I voted for Gary Johnson. And I, not that I regret it, but like, no, I am not a libertarian. I do not.
No, it's funny. I actually have a similar transition with it where it was like, so growing up, my mom was always like a Democrat, but I always kind of knew, I don't know how I knew. I must have like read some stuff on the internet about how both parties were corrupt, like when I was a little kid, because I always knew.
You just had a feeling. You just had a feeling. You just knew.
And so like when it was probably 2012, I think it was, for that presidential election. I was in high school, and in my government class, we had to do a project on either Barack Obama or Mitt Romney. And I remember I had picked Gary Johnson because I heard that there was 2 other political parties and I didn't know what they were.
Wow.
And so I picked the Libertarian Party. And because at the time I thought, you know, oh, well, you know, they're also against, you know, they want criminal justice reform and they want gay marriage and, you know, the civil liberties are good. And, you know, I thought I liked Ron Paul at the time. And like, I don't think I properly understood what free markets were and what that meant and what libertarian economics really are, because now I fundamentally disagree with them. But like, so at the time,
and that they don't believe everyone should have health care, that shouldn't be supplied. Yeah, that was my big thing, because I was registered as a libertarian.
And a lot of there's like a big split in the Libertarian Party, I've noticed, where it's like there are left libertarians and right libertarians, and the Libertarian Party tends to take, you know, from both major parties almost equally, whereas Greens are more, you know, farther to the left, libertarian. And they have Vermin Supreme. I know he's a joke, like, of a candidate. Like, he's not actually serious. Vermin, you don't know Vermin Supreme?
No.
You've never heard of Vermin Supreme?
No.
Oh my God. I feel like I need to like pull up a picture of him or something, because he is the guy who wears the boot on his head. And you have to have seen a picture of him, I swear.
What are you talking? This is not ringing any bells.
I'll pull up the picture on the screen. I think we can do that.
Oh my God.
So let's
And what, he's a libertarian?
He runs in the Libertarian Party, but I think he's an anarchist. Like, he's definitely like a left libertarian if he is a libertarian. I think he only runs it's a joke. You'll see what I mean by him being a joke here. There's Vermin Supreme with the boot on his head. I remember one of his policies had been, you know, we need to get rid of ISIS back in 2012, 2014. He was saying we should go back in time, you know, get a time machine, because if we go back in time, they didn't used to exist. Or, everybody deserves a free pony. That was one of his policies too. So he's a total joke of a candidate, but he's kind of like the left edge of the Libertarian Party. But after, I thought I had been a libertarian. I was on the edge of like libertarian and thinking Democrats were the lesser of two evils for a while. And then 2015 happened, and one of my friends told me, "Oh, have you ever heard of that Bernie Sanders guy?" And I had never heard of that Bernie Sanders guy. And so I looked him up, and he had like 1% in the Democratic primary at the time. He had just announced. I was looking at his policies. I'm like, wow, free healthcare for everybody, free education. Like, this sounds like amazing. Like, why is he not a more popular person? Why do people not know about him?
Yeah.
And I was like, at that point,
I didn't know about him at that point.
And he was an independent. That was the thing that I really liked, is because I had always been outside the two-party system, since 2012. And so I saw this guy who was an independent, was running as a Democrat just to take over the party, is how it seemed. And I remember he went from 2% to 10% to 15% to all of a sudden he's out fundraising Hillary Clinton. He's gaining in all the polls. He actually has a chance, it looks like, to win. And then it always looked to me at the time like the media had been rigging things against him. Like, at the very beginning, it'd be like 1 or 2 states had voted in the primary. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, Bernie, he's got, 10 delegates, 20 delegates. Hillary Clinton has 560, because they were including the super delegates in the count. So they'd be like, oh, how could he ever come back from such a deficit? Meanwhile, only 2 states have voted, 3 states have voted, constantly smearing Bernie on the air. But at the time, I was just like, I guess that's what it happens. That's just how politics is. I don't think it's that serious, whatever. And then I saw Democracy Spring. They were a group trying to protest for open primaries, get rid of super delegates, get rid of Citizens United, and gerrymandering, all the electoral reforms that I like. And so I saw they were going to be protesting at the DNC convention in 2016 in Philadelphia. So I went with them there. We did civil disobediences for all these voting rights and stuff. And while we were there was when the WikiLeaks emails dropped, justifying everything that we had felt watching up to that point. You actually see the media colluding with the party, like directly, not even secretively. You see Donna Brazile giving the debate questions. And so I had just gotten arrested in a civil disobedience in front of the Democratic National Convention. And now I'm seeing the primary was rigged. And to me, it was just like, oh my God, like, this is not a democracy. This is like totally authoritarian, like totally out of left field. And then you saw Hillary Clinton hire Debbie Schultz to her campaign like 2 days after she resigned, basically rewarding her for rigging the primary. And at that point, I was like, no, like, I'm not voting for Hillary Clinton. Like, hell no. Like, I am voting Green Party. Jill Stein is still talking about this stuff. She's even to the left of Bernie. And so that was when I kind of got introduced to the Green Party. I knew about them before, but I didn't really know what they stood for. And so then it was like, okay, well, that's where I'm going. I don't even feel bad about it because I've seen enough corruption. I was there in Philadelphia. I saw delegates, Bernie Sanders delegates, who walked out in protest and then were not allowed back into the building for the rest of the week. Or the media was coming over to record our protest. It was CNN. And right before they got up to us, they were like, oh, hang on. Jake Tapper's like, hang on. We're actually going to go cut to Boys to Men is in Philadelphia performing this week, doing some live performance. They cut the reporter off mid-sentence when he was covering our protest. And like, we had gotten into the convention another day and protested again closer to the inside, didn't get any media coverage. A New York Times journalist posted it on his Facebook Live, never got written an article in the New York Times. And so I'm seeing all of this like blatant media corruption happening. And I'm a journalism major at the time too. So like, I understand how the media is supposed to work. And so it was like, and then 2016 happened. And here's where I feel bad, is that I had stayed too much in the Bernie Sanders orbit, still trying to take over the Democratic Party. I was pissed he had stabbed us in the back by not talking about Assange, by not talking about WikiLeaks, by endorsing Hillary Clinton, letting her get away with all these things. I thought he could have won if he had run as a third-party candidate. I mean, Gary Johnson and Jill Stein had 20% of the vote at that point in the polls at the time. Bernie Sanders was way more popular than them. I mean, he would have appealed from both parties. But I forgave him. And I was like, you know what? He was just doing the strategic thing that you have to do to take over the party. And so I'm going to put all my chips on 2020. I'm going to support his goal to be in the party 2020. And then, the primary happens. Maybe it's not as explicitly rigged as the time before, but you see Biden calling Pete Buttigieg and all these people on the phone, convincing them to drop out before the primaries and stuff. And at that point, like, once I realized that, like, I'm basically Bernie Sanders or bust. I had been Bernie or bust in 2016, and I guess bust means vote third party, not don't vote at all. But so as soon as that happened, I knew going into that primary that Joe Biden was like the worst candidate in the primary. Him and Bloomberg were like the two candidates that were like, I knew would never get my vote. Elizabeth Warren was the only one at the time that I thought maybe she could possibly be somebody I'd support. And then she stabbed Bernie in the back. And then, it became clear to me that she was more neoliberal. She was not actually democratic socialist. Even Bernie's not necessarily democratic socialist in every single way. He's more of a social democrat in a lot of ways with how he collaborates with the neoliberals. But it's like, that was for me the wake-up call of like, no, like, I am out of the Democratic Party entirely. Like, Joe Biden was insulting, immigrants' rights activists, telling them to go vote for Trump, calling people fat, and not supporting Medicare for all, not supporting raising the minimum wage, not supporting canceling student loan debt, saying he was going to sanction all these countries, go to all the wars. I mean, it's like, I couldn't do that anymore. And so now it's about, so how do we build up a third party? And so I'm green because I've been green since 2016, but I'm like very not partisan about it in the sense that, like, I'm not strictly green. I'm not like dead set on the Green Party would have to be the third party that I would support. I like them more than MPP. I think MPP has some flaws. I don't think they've organized it well enough yet. I like PSL. I think PSL is probably like the one that I'm most sympathetic to other than the Greens. But like, how do you think the Green Party can either convince other parties to collaborate together, other third parties, other leftist third parties to collaborate together on mutual goals? Or do you ever envision a day where we could, whether the Green Party is the vehicle or something else, another third party with ballot access, how do you envision bringing that coalition of people together?
Okay, that's really hard. I think what it has to do is we really need to get back to like one common cause. And for me, at this point, ready for the revolution, it's, are you down to dismantle and rebuild America? And I feel like if we can all unify around and come in solidarity around that one common cause, we can get this revolution going. And then it doesn't fucking matter what party we are, because I don't even know if in this new world we'll have political parties. This is because right now I'm like, fuck electoral politics. I'm really getting in I'm doing all this with the Green Party right now because I am very passionate about using my platform with them to promote mutual aid. But maybe in a new world, like we are, in post-revolution world, we don't need all these political parties because we have a direct democracy. So why does it matter? So to me, what I really like, so again, like how I got to the Green Party was somehow I got registered as a libertarian. And I guess it might have been after I voted for Gary Johnson in 2016. Because in 2018, in like May of 2018, I was meeting with a friend of mine who works for the governor of Maryland. And I was like telling him all the stuff I want to do and like my passions and stuff. And he was like, why don't you run as a state delegate? And I was like, what the fuck is a state delegate? Like, I don't know. So I got in my car, went back to the parking lot, got in my car, looked at what a state delegate was, and like learned about the General Assembly of Maryland, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, cool, this sounds good. And I called the Libertarian Party, and because that's what I was registered as, because he was like, call the party you're registered as to see if you could run with them. And I asked them, or they like asked me like, okay, like, what do you stand for? And I was like, well, like healthcare for all. And he's like, whoa, what? And I was like, you don't like that? What? And he's like, you believe in healthcare for all?
Privatized healthcare for all.
Yeah. He was like, you should go call the Green Party. And I was like, thank you very much. And I hung up and I called the Green Party, and that's how I got the ball rolling. And what really got me to like stick with the Green Party was well, I really love the eco-socialist approach of like making the environment a part of every aspect of all their values. So like Their 10 key values are ecological wisdom, nonviolence, social justice, grassroots democracy, decentralization, community-based economics, feminism, respect for diversity, global and personal responsibility, and sustainability. And then the Green Party was the first party, technically the European Green Party, was the first party to propose the Green New Deal. And I was like, oh my God, because like the climate crisis is like my number one issue. And I was like, oh my God, like this is amazing. Like I love that this is front and center of their platform. So like for their Green New Deal, like part of that is enacting an economic bill of rights. So that would include single payer healthcare, fuck a livable wage. We want thriving wage. If we're even going to live in a money society, I want to live in a moneyless society. I want to do a resource based. But, you know, we want to make sure all the needs are met in this new society with this economic bill of rights that we rewrite into this new constitution that we draft for new America. So I at that point, I was still like pro electoral politics. I was like, oh, the Green Party, we can fight the system. And now I'm like, fuck it, we need to take down the system, that we need to unify together. What's so
complicated is it's like, you know, the electoral approach, while I agree that it's like, there's some merit to it in the sense that like we don't have the movement already built to have a new constitution, right? We actually have to have a movement of people to build the new constitution. So in the meantime, okay, it makes sense why some people go down that path. But if you're only going down that path and you're not thinking about mutual aid to have a general strike, if you're not thinking about having a brand new constitution, like I was inspired, I need to do more research on this. When I saw that Chile had a social movement that resulted in a ballot initiative that resulted in the rewrite of their constitution. And it was all because of, you know, a mass movement, protests in the streets, riots, all sorts of things like that. But it culminated in a new constitution. And I really think that kind of thing is exactly what America needs. I mean, the Constitution still has slavery in it. The 13th Amendment literally allows slavery for imprisoned people, like it's explicitly said. And like I'd have to find specific examples of the Constitutions. Can't think of them off the top of my head.
I don't have rights in the Constitution. As a woman, my rights aren't guaranteed in the Constitution.
I was going to say, there are a lot of South American and African countries that I do think have gender equality in their Constitution. The right to clean food and clean water, or healthy food and clean water.
Clean air.
The right to health care, clean air. Like these types of things are explicitly laid out in other countries' constitutions. And in ours, it's not at all. And so like, I can imagine a society, like when we say, oh, give up on electoralism, burn it all down. Some people think that we're just being defeatist and that there's no path to that type of thing. But the whole point is if our path is rewriting the Constitution, having a brand new Constitution entirely, well, then once we have those Bill of Rights in the new Constitution, okay, well then electoralism is more fair, right? Because you can't have a conservative party come in and just all of a sudden pull us back to no healthcare and pull us back to no clean water and food, because it's in the Constitution now. Now the courts won't let them do that. You know what I mean? And that's why we're nowhere near that yet, I think. No. You know, it's just us and FHL really who actually talk about that type of movement for a brand new constitution. And I'm sure all sorts of smaller anarchist communist groups across the country talk about it too. But it's like, it's not mainstreamed in any sort of way.
I don't think it ever will be.
But it has to be. That's the thing, is that we have to find a way, I think, to strategically
I don't think so.
Get like the social movements themselves, I think, need to be demanding these things in the streets. Because if BLM, for example, you know, they at least got defund the police talked about, right? And nothing happened. Very little happened. I think Seattle kind of defunded the police, but very little happened. But at least
look how they've been co-opted.
Yes, and exactly. But that's what I'm saying, though, is that at least now defund the police is talked about, right? Now we have something to build upon. People know what defund the police, maybe they have misperceptions about what it means, but they at least have heard the term. Nobody has heard the term of rewriting the Constitution. That's completely unheard of. So if there ever is a big social movement in the streets again, you know, I think the demands need to be more concrete and something like that so that the media can't ignore it. We have to find ways to make these things not ignorable. And that's always been my approach to like direct action. Whenever we do direct action, you know, if you lock yourself down in front of Raytheon's building or something in protest, you know, call the media before you show up. Tell the media you're going to be there. Share it to strategic people who might actually be able to get it heard by more people. Whereas I think a lot of times we do protests and they're nice, but like they're just symbolic parades in a way, especially when there's a permit. I hate permitted protests, you know, because it's like they're allowing you to be there. The police are following you.
Yeah.
They're laughing at you. Like one time in DC, with Extinction Rebellion, it was Shutdown DC. I don't know if you ever heard of Shutdown DC, the whole umbrella of organizations there. But, you know, we had done the protest in September of 2018. We blocked all these roads across DC. I chained myself to a boat. Police had to like chainsaw us out of the boat to get us out. But it didn't feel serious because it was like, okay, yeah, we blocked the intersection and the whole DC had traffic blocked for a morning. But the police who were like freeing us from it, they were like laughing, having fun. They didn't charge any of us with anything. They were like, it's okay, you did your thing, have a day. To us, to the white protesters with Extinction Rebellion. And then we come to find out later that day that Black Lives Matter had also been protesting with Shutdown DC. They weren't even allowed to step in the road without being threatened with arrest. And so it was just like if your protest is having the police laugh at you and just be joking and silly with you, like you're not really making a difference. The media covered us for one day. Oh, wow, climate change is a serious thing, guys. We need to take this climate change thing seriously. Nothing happened. No clear demands, no. And that's the thing. Like our movements are good at getting attention to issues, but not in like a targeted, focused way that the media can't spin it off of what we're actually trying to talk about.
Yeah. Well, this is where I'm at now, Kobe. I'm at, we are in the time and need for a revolution. And to get that revolution, I think we're on the right path because like, look at all these job strikes that are happening right now. The general strike is happening October 15th. And like all these other strikes are happening right now. Like, I think this is the domino effect. I think this is beautiful. I'm very excited watching this happen. And because I feel like I'm watching the revolution happen in real time. And I'm at right now, I'm like, all right, y'all, like, let's fucking build up some mutual aid, get this general strike up and going. And then, but at this point, we cannot reform the establishment. We need to completely dismantle, abolish, and rebuild that shit. So at my point, I am at, we build up this mutual aid, and then maybe December 31st at night, we march to this. I'm in Maryland, so I'm heading to DC. But like wherever you are, whatever state you're in, whatever, march to your state's capital, and we're gonna have like a proclamation for like a recall proclamation saying like, y'all failed. Y'all are no longer needed. Y'all are dismissed, and already have up. This is our draft of our new constitution. We, the people, are taking over. But it needs to be a mass, armed, organized protest. And we need the media there because we need them there because we want a peaceful transition of power. But if they want bloodshed, that's on them. And this revolution will be fucking televised.
Well, and that's where it gets complicated, like, because I'm doing a lot of research now for like my human rights master's degree program. And one of the topics, one of the big talking points in international law that has no clear answer yet is self-determination of people and internal or external self-determination. Like, so the idea of a state or country seceding from another country, or in this case, having a new constitution, Declaration of Independence, to have a new constitution, whatever it is, it's not illegal in international law. There's nothing in international law that says
we don't even recognize international law.
Yeah, no, the U.S. doesn't. I was just reading about that today.
We don't give a fuck about it. Fuck it.
But it's so crazy because the U.S. does when it comes to like Milosevic in Yugoslavia. They love those human rights trials, right?
Oh,
but now they're not part of the ICC. I posted today that they are allowed to invade The Hague and free any U.S. personnel who are held accountable for war crimes.
What the fuck is that about?
That's insane. If they can commit war crimes and just get away with it because we'll invade Netherlands. I mean, if the media covered that, I think the American people would be shocked to know that we have threatened to invade the Netherlands. Like, that's you never think about it.
Mainstream media is co-opted by the establishment, so they will never cover destructive things that are not in the interest of the establishment, unless they have a good way to spin it. But this, this is totally on us right now to spread the word. We need to do this old-fashioned communication, however you can. I'm honestly at the point, I don't know how we're thinking of we're going to be communicating now, because Twitter spaces are like getting shut down. There's censorship on YouTube. Like, this is crazy, the censorship age we're living under right now. But we need to be communicating and organizing right now. So we just need to be spreading the word. We need to be taking responsibility for igniting this revolution, because we cannot trust mainstream media to do it.
It's just difficult because it's like we have somewhat of an ability to reach people online, but then they censor us to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And even the people we reach, it's like you almost feel like you're in a crazy bubble where it's like, how does everybody not know this stuff? Like, how do people not know the corruption that happens? Like, I remember when I first started going to the Julian Assange protests earlier this year in, I want to say March or April, and there was only like 15 or 20 people there. Like, it was so small. And every protest was only like 10 or 15 people. And I'm like, this man revealed war crimes, like international war crimes. Like, he is a journalist in prison for doing his job of journalism. And I couldn't believe that how few people, and I'd get all this backlash on Twitter of, why are you defending him? He criticized X, Y, and Z country once. You know, he's not a socialist. He's not a real leftist. So why would you back him up? And it's like, to me, it's like, but that's not the point. Like, his ideology is not the point. I don't even know what it is. He's hinted he might be communist, but it's like, that doesn't matter. His job, he did his job of revealing war crimes, and now he's being, arrested for it and persecuted for it. He's been tortured for like 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's where it really needs to go. International law, even though the US doesn't follow international law fully, we're the global hegemon. We don't have to, right? Nobody can hold us accountable. We're on the Security Council. But I think appealing to international law and the international community is really the only way that we would be fully successful in pressuring for something like that. Because if you're going to the state houses, right, and you're putting a Declaration of Independence, or you're putting, a new constitution, whatever it is, you will need the international community to recognize it. Because if they do not recognize it, you're screwed. You're going to get the state forces cracking down on you hard, just like they did on BLM, just like they did to Occupy Wall Street. The same exact thing would happen. But if you can prove that the U.S. has been committing all of these human rights abuses on us and on people around the world, I mean, I think the international community would support something.
It's
like
already
that.
been proven, and I think all those reports that we commit human right violations to our own citizens and abroad and in Guantanamo Bay, like that, all that evidence already exists. Like, we just need to be talking about it more, and we need to be spreading that word. And I'm sorry, there was something else you said that I was going to comment on.
I don't remember. Well, what was it about? Hint. Give me a hint. International law, Julian Assange.
International law. Okay,
rights.
I think the international community is already with us. This is the beginning of a global proletariat revolution, because that's what we need. That's what humanity needs to survive right now and not go to extinction right now. A global proletariat revolution. And I think once the U.S., because look at all, like, this is happening in like the protests, like all in South America right now. Like I'm like the global strike, the global climate strike that just happened. Like, all this is already happening right now. I think if the U.S. was the first to I just think it has to be the U.S. because we're the global superpower. Like, we need to take this stand. The mass of the people need to say, fuck this, fuck capitalism, fuck the white supremacy based capitalism and imperialism dominated by the patriarchy. We are abolishing that shit and totally rebuilding that. And that is an example that we can set. Once we do that, everyone else throughout the world, I believe, will follow suit.
And that was the big thing for me. Like, when I had left the US the first time, when I studied abroad in Sweden the first time in 2017, 2018, I think it was, like, that was when I really came to realize, like, just how important it is for people in the imperial core to resist the empire, that our goal should not just be reformism around the edge, but we are the authoritarian dictatorship of the world, basically. And that if we're only focused on chipping away at it in very small ways and just appealing it and appeasing it and not changing it, we have the whole world under our boot forever.
Yep.
And it's like, I thought it was really eye-opening to me too, like going to the climate strike in Lund, what was it, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, just how many people were holding signs of end capitalism.
Yeah,
like,
that's
and that
awesome.
Was something I didn't necessarily expect to see, because, you know, when I think of Fridays for Future, I think like, yeah, it's good, it's grassroots, but I think of it as being maybe half more radical and half is more just kind of average people who want to join a climate protest type of thing. But to see that there was that many people there who like were explicitly saying like end capitalism, like capitalism's wrong, that to me is like a good sign that this is what the international community is talking about. People protested in 100 countries around the world, and in like 1,500 different locations in the countries around the world. Like, and you can't have unlimited growth on a planet with limited resources, right?
Yep.
We can't keep can't keep living the lifestyles that we're living right now and expect the planet to like survive it.
Yep.
So what do you think, comparing the Green Party's Green New Deal to AOC's, what would you say are like the key differences? Why is the Green Party's more, you know, what we need to be doing?
Let me pull it up for you.
I would like to hear a nice in-depth
paid,
explanation of this.
Sure, because I have absolutely not paid any mind to AOC's bullshit, watered down Green New Deal. That would not save us for
from
shit.
People like Samira Khan talks about it as being basically like an imperialist version of a climate plan. It's like competing with the Belt and Road Initiative of China instead of collaborating with the international community. You know, that's kind of how I've heard it portrayed.
For AOC's?
AOC's version, exactly. Yeah. Whereas the Green Party's is more about, you know, actually nationalizing industries and actually like, you know, not just using a profit motive way of doing it, not just doing like a cap and trade style way of doing it, but like, and way more money, way more investment put into it.
Yeah.
Way more than the $3.5 trillion that we're seeing, you know, in this current bill that's not even all climate.
Yep. So this is, there's a few things about it I want to read. So I'll start with this. The Green New Deal will convert the old gray economy into a new sustainable economy that is environmentally sound, economically viable, and socially responsible. It seeks to solve this climate crisis by combining quick action to get to net zero greenhouse gas emissions and 100% renewable energy by 2030, along with an economic bill of rights, the right to single-payer healthcare, a guaranteed job at a living wage, affordable housing, and free college education. Here, let me get this. The Green New Deal. The Green New Deal starts with a World War II type mobilization to address the grave threat posed by climate change, transitioning our country to 100% clean energy by 2030. Clean energy does not include natural gas, biomass, nuclear power, or the oxymoron clean coal. The implementation of the Green New Deal will revive the economy, turn the tide on the climate change, and make wars for oil obsolete. This latter result, in turn, enables 50% cut in the military budget because maintaining bases all over the world to safeguard fossil fuel supplies and routes of transportation could no longer be justified. That military savings of several $100 billion per year would go a very long way towards creating green jobs at home. So, like, just think about that for a second. Like, this is not like when people are like, where does it come from? Where's the money? Like, we already have the money. Like, redirect it from the military, from the Pentagon, to the Green New Deal. It's literally that simple, y'all.
I mean, how much we spent, like trillions. We spent like almost $10 trillion or something in the entire war in Afghanistan throughout the 20 years we were there. We have the 800, maybe what is it, $750 billion a year now, I think, is the military budget. They just raised it another $50 billion a year this year.
What about the extra billion we gave to Israel? What the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, it's like we clearly have the money, and that's not including the $11 million a day or $11 million every few minutes we get in fossil fuel subsidies giving out, and the concept of modern monetary theory, the idea that you don't necessarily even need to have the money on you when you print your own currency, and you can just go into debt. You know, it's just numbers on a computer screen that you're really toying with here. And it's like, why do we need to have our military budget that big? You know, I've seen pictures where it's like you compare the U.S. Military budget compared to the world. I'm going to look it up now.
Yeah. And we have
where it's like
800
just
bases
how much
worldwide.
More. You see just how much more we spend and how unnecessary it is that we spend this much money. So here we go. got it up yet. Let me see.
Our military and police budgets are fucking insane.
So let me get that up there. I mean, it's crazy because you see, we spend, and this is outdated now, so this isn't even the current one. This is 2019, but the next 11 countries combined spend less than we do on military. And it's like,
I can't.
How do you justify it? I have no idea how you can justify that much money spent on military while people don't have health care, while people don't have food, people don't have adequate housing, where, 50% of the country, I think the median income in America is like $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the most I've ever made is like $25,000 a year. And I live at home with my mom. So it's like, I've been fine. But it's like, that is so many people. That's 160 billion people who basically live on the edge of poverty. And then they say they don't have the money. And so like I don't know if you know Glenstone, the art museum. It's in Potomac in Maryland.
Oh, wow.
It's literally that billionaire's art museum. I worked there. And we were only making $15 an hour working there. And, crazy thing is the cushiest job I've ever had, right? I'm making $15 an hour, 10 days of vacation. And I'm hearing from my coworkers. I'm hearing stuff from my coworkers about how that $15 an hour is just barely enough. They are like struggling. We talked about, we wanted to possibly form a union, but everybody's so scared. And like, I feel bad for even talking about it now, but I feel like I have to talk about it. It's been a year since I've been there. I'm gone. Like, we would have meetings where we would discuss the idea of it. People would, as soon as I'd say the U word, people were like,
yeah.
Because they know that if the wrong person hears us talking about the U word, all of a sudden they're going to start firing us and scabbing us and trying to stop the bleeding to prevent us from doing it. And the company always, when we would complain, because we would kind of organize ourselves and push back on things they were doing informally without a union. And I kind of got the impression that the company would bend to our pressure precisely because they didn't want us to form a union.
Yeah.
Because if they didn't bend, then they know that that's the next thing that happens. But it's like that fear people have of they don't want to go homeless. That's the biggest reason I think we don't have strikes happening. Is that if you lose, if you go on strike and they just fire you and scab you and you don't win the demands, I mean, you're screwed. And that's why people can't take the leap. So many people want to take that leap.
Yep.
But they just either don't have the funds to do it or don't know how to make a strike happen. I don't even know how. I just was very adamant about wanting it. And so I see you were doing mutual aid. You posted a picture the other day. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh my God. So I've been, well, I guess I've always been passionate about mutual aid. I just like never knew it was called mutual aid until recently. Yeah. And I've been really inspired by Rome at Holy Rome on Twitter, and all his work with the Tour for the Poor. So I was like, I want to go make some mutual aid packs. And cause I live in Annapolis and I have seen more, unhoused people like just like walking the streets and like looking like totally just like desperate, and like it's still it's October and it's still like 80 degrees outside, like it's fucking hot, like the weather, climate change, climate crisis. So I've just seen way more people suffering. I've seen when I've been in Baltimore City the past few times these last few months, I've seen way more tents up. So I'm like, oh my God, like this is insane. I need to do something. So I have officially, I haven't told my mom yet, but officially I'm putting up the pause on school. I'm taking an excused withdrawal for the semester and a leave of absence for the foreseeable future to focus full time on my activism organizing work. And really I'm trying to build up mutual aid, get more involved with mutual aid on state, national, international level. I'm trying to make this baby happen because that's what we need to get this global proletariat revolution happening. We need to build up that mutual aid so people know they have a security net, so they have a safety net that you can do this. Go on strike. It's the right thing to do, and you are protected by your community.
And it's so possible. Like, the thing that blows my mind is people who don't think that we're capable of funding something like that. And I'm not talking about government funding. I'm talking about just us crowdfunding that type of money. If Hassan Piker can get people to give him $200,000 a month for playing video games and talking about politics, like, and Bernie Sanders, just from $28 donations, can fundraise more money than Hillary Clinton can with the corporate machine. I mean, like, all it takes is enough people actually focused in that direction. And that's why I think when you say we shouldn't be focused on electoralism, we need to be focused on mutual aid and stuff. I mean, I think that's exactly why. Because imagine if Hassan Piker said, fuck the Democrats, now I'm going to go work on mutual aid instead, and I'm just going to focus on telling everybody to give money to mutual aid. That would be impactful. If somebody like Bernie Sanders or even the Squad, they were to say, you know, we should all shift our focus, don't give money to politicians anymore. People with platforms. That's the thing that I really think is, like, it's not the core thing. Obviously, talking to people on the ground is the core thing, helping people first on the ground and talk to people in your community. But if we can get people in strategically high places to change their mind and talk about these things totally different. That's why, even though I'm not happy with Andrew Yang's approach to his third party, because it's like he said today, woman talked to him and was like, yeah, you're making radical centrists like me feel like I finally have a home. And he threw Jill Stein under the bus today. Him and Marianne Williamson had said, what was it? You know, we're not saying there should be more Jill Steins. We're just saying that most countries in the world have multi-party systems, and so should we. And the second part is something I like. I like that they're talking about ranked choice voting. I like that they're talking about a multi-party system. Ultimately, that's not where I want us to go with their party. I don't want the forward party, the neoliberal, libertarian version of a third party. But even just getting them to switch from, everybody go vote for Democrats, the lesser of two evils, blue no matter who. If we can get people to even shift from that to mutual aid, from that to break the two-party system, you don't necessarily need to get everybody immediately to our side on the far left, right? They don't need to be socialists or communists immediately. But if you can pull people strategically towards our direction, like, that would actually help. But it's just, how do we do that is the big thing, because it's so difficult too. We're just nobodies, right? Who would listen to us of our strategic advice? It's taken FHL. I think FHL is going to get there personally. I think FHL's got the type of momentum where, if they just keep doing this for a whole nother year, a whole nother 2 years, eventually they're going to have 100,000 subscribers. Eventually they're going to have 200,000 subscribers. Eventually it'll get to the point where people like TYT cannot ignore them anymore. You know what I mean? And that's what I think is really, like, what's so promising about what they're doing is, and Rome's traveling the country doing mutual aid work, telling people stop, hero worshiping these politicians and start actually focusing on your neighbors instead. Because so many people will attack us online just for criticizing AOC and the Squad from the left, where it's like, you realize she's like a politician, right? Like, she's like a famous person. Like, she's got all of this privilege and all of this comfort. And the people, those of us who are criticizing her, are powerless. You know what I mean? We are low income people in marginalized groups. And, like, so why are we attacking each other? Why are us average people fighting amongst each other about our favorite flavor of politician, instead of, like, focusing on the people who actually are causing all the problems, the billionaire class, like the oligarchs who've rigged all of these elections. And, and that's what's so crazy is, like, so how do you feel? This is a controversial question, we could say. How do you feel about January 6th? What's your take on that whole January 6th situation? Because I have, like, two minds of it.
Yeah? Okay, This is what I think. I think it is history repeating itself. It is what the Nazi Party did. It is how they got into power. If this does not go unchecked, this will happen again. And that's my take on it. I totally believe in learning from history, and if you don't, history will repeat itself, and that's what I believe this was.
Well, I think, because what we had heard that the Nazis before, like 15 years before Hitler took power, there had been things like that.
Was it 28, like 32, 19?
Yeah, I don't know how much earlier it was, but I know that there were things starting to happen.
There was a coup d'etat by the Nazi party. Yeah.
And people weren't properly held accountable, so they ended up doing it again. But it's like so crazy to me because it's like on one hand, it was totally obviously that they were trying to overturn the election. Like, I don't believe any Trump supporter who says it was about anything else, because it's like Trump was explicitly saying, go there during the electoral college counting, stop them from counting the vote. We're going to put people in strategic positions to do that. There were cops who were on their side, people wearing a Civil War II shirt.
They were warned about it, and they declined help. They did not take this seriously.
And Trump purposely, I think Trump's advisors were saying that he was like kind of la-di-da-di-da, oh, this is so cool, isn't it, guys?
My
and
friends.
He wasn't actually. But then on the other hand, it's like, I can understand why somebody who is a naive Trump supporter, somebody who maybe doesn't properly understand all of the political workings of this, so they just see the same corrupt system that we do, right? They see the elites, the corporate elites, in the Tucker Carlson-esque way of saying it. They see the corporate elites who are ruling all the things and screwing them over. And then they direct it towards like xenophobia, and then they like direct it towards like Christian fundamentalism and like all of those crazy things. But it's like not every single Trump supporter is that worst character, I think, of that. There are a range of people, just like every Democrat's not Hillary Clinton, not every Democrat's AOC, right? People have crazy opinions that they come to for all sorts of weird reasons. And like, how do we get to those people, those Trump supporters who are not the worst gone neo-Nazis? They thought this was saving democracy. Some of them, I think, genuinely thought this was about like, well, the US government's corrupt, right? You agree with us. You far left people agree with us that the government's corrupt. Why didn't you support what we did? How do you convince that person?
Honestly, Kobe, I see what you're saying, but I will not make excuses for Trump supporters. Because especially as a woman, I felt attacked. And if you bypass that, if you ignore that and said, oh, I don't really think that's who he is, after he expressly expressed that
he said it over and over and over. He said it from the very first day of his campaign. Literally in 2016, he had said, we're going to kick all the Mexicans out. Like, that was the first thing he said.
So if I don't give a fuck what your reasoning is for voting for him, it was wrong. You were misguided, and please find the right path, because voting for Trump is inexcusable, because in my opinion, he was the most openly racist, sexist, xenophobic, ism president we have ever had. And there is no way, there is no justification you can make to say, oh, but this is my thing. And this is a very personal topic for me. I have distanced myself from my family because so many of them, I come from a white privilege bubble, and I am a black sheep in my family. And either they support Biden or they supported Trump. And for them that supported Trump, their reasoning was, I want to stay rich. I don't want my taxes to be affected. So the fact that they voted for Trump because they were concerned about their wealth over everything else that he vocally supported disgusts me. And I cannot, in good faith, it's like bad for my mental health. It's taxing on myself to put myself in that situation. That's why I'm not going to Christmas this year. Thank God I got out of it last year, where I could kind of be like, oh, COVID. But this year I was like, Mom, I am not going to Christmas. Why do you think
the thing is, like, I don't think everybody needs to have the role of de-radicalizing people, right? That's a very specific thing that I think very specific people do. And it's not something that's for everybody. What's so crazy to me is, like, I feel that way about Trump supporters. And I've always thought of Democrats as being the lesser of two evils, right?
Sure.
I didn't think they were quite the same as Trump supporters. But like Hillary Clinton, for example, I mean, how many regime change wars around the world did she support where she just laughed about, assassinating dictators and, rigged elections in all sorts of countries around the world? It wasn't just the US, And so to me, it's like, I almost felt the same exact frustration with Trump supporters that I do with Biden supporters and Hillary Clinton supporters, where it's like it's two sides of the same coin. And that's where it's almost like confusing to me, is like, so okay, so you think that you're morally superior because you voted for Hillary Clinton, or you think that you're morally superior because you voted for Joe Biden. But then how do you just write off the fact that they're bombing all these countries, killing innocent civilians, attacking journalists, like not giving us health care during a deadly pandemic? You know, it's like, I don't understand how people can like just write that off in their heads as not being, you know, oh, that's the acceptable level of harm, right? It's harm reduction. But it's like, how much harm are you really reducing if the only thing we're getting, we can't even get a $15 minimum wage, we can't even get a public option. It looks like Medicare for all isn't going to happen for like 10 years, 20 years, right? That's the way they portray it to us. And it's like, how is that harm reduction if all of Europe has some form of universal health care? You know, how that's like, at this point, it's like what Julian Assange said of, it's like choosing between gonorrhea and chlamydia. Like, they're just two different, really terrible things. And I don't even like portraying it. I've always portrayed one as the lesser of two evils, but I've been really persuaded by people who say, you know, they don't want to choose which one's the lesser of two evils. They just want to say they're both evil. You know what I mean? We don't have to say which one's better than the other, because it's like, why? Why do we have to pick one of them if they're both so bad? And it's like, do you want to eat 1 month old rotten food, or do you want to eat a year old rotten food? You're still going to get sick and die. You know, it's like, So I wonder how we're going to like break out of that pattern of lesser of two evils mindset. Like, how do we do that? What do you think the path is? I know we've talked about the new constitution idea, but like, let's say that falls through, it doesn't happen. Like, what policies do you think could break the two-party mindset? This is a question too. How can you get to a multi-party system is another one, but
I am not for, at this point, I am not for a multi-party system. I am for a direct democracy.
So define that. So I was going to ask you that earlier, but I got lost in the other conversation. Direct democracy. What do you mean when you say that? Like, what specific iteration of direct democracy do you mean? Like ballot initiatives, like strikes, like what do you think it looks like?
Legislation is brought directly to the people, and majority rule. If that passes, it passes. That is how we vote on legislation. Like, that's how I would see we voting on our new Constitution and Bill of Rights that's our first democratic act of business, by issuing this new Constitution and Bill of Rights, you know, whatever platform we decide to do. But it's the age of the internet. Like, we can easily do this, and we can distribute it worldwide to help inspire other nations to, like, this is what we're funding ours on, and this is what we included, because we do want this to be.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we want it to be global. Like, we want to all be on the same page right now of what we're trying to accomplish. And that, to me, is to save humanity and our planet.
And so it's like, what I was going to say was, what was it? Did I lose it? No. So if it was in the Constitution, as long as we have certain guaranteed rights in the Constitution, all the ones that we had talked about before, because like my fear would have been, well, what if a majority of Americans want to vote for slavery, right? Or what if a majority of Americans want to vote for some sort of discriminatory policy or something that's harmful to people? But I guess that problem wouldn't be a problem, because if the Constitution prevents such a thing from being possible, we're only voting on the good things. I know Switzerland might be a good example for you to look into when you're thinking about this. I don't know everything about their system, but I know they have more ballot initiatives and more direct democracy than most other European countries. I know that even in the US, we have a lot of states that have a ballot initiative process. I mean, we wouldn't have ranked choice voting in some places without it. We wouldn't have marijuana legalization at all if it hadn't been for state ballot initiatives. I'd love to see the Maryland Green Party do something about the ballot initiative process in Maryland, because it's so crazy to me that in Maryland, for something to get on the ballot, the legislature has to vote to put it on the ballot. So we don't have a petition process like they have in most other ballot initiative states. We actually have to bring them, or we have to convince our congressman to do it, which is not direct democracy at all, right? That's representative democracy.
Here, like, okay, in that situation, sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
What were you saying? I'm just going through the comments.
No, it's okay. I had nothing to say.
I was going to say, so in that situation, people with influence would have so much power to affect votes. And then I think you would need to fix the education system for a direct democracy to work well. Yes, this is a complete upheaval and renovation of every single system within America, including the education system, including healthcare, including, oh my God, my head's like spinning. Like, everything is going to be completely redesigned and reconstructed to make this direct democracy work. Like, there wouldn't be no elite in power, because we would abolish money, or we'd make that way, and establish a resource-based economy. And I'm learning something more about this called the solidarity economy. I think that has to do with like involving more co-ops and stuff, like healthcare co-ops. And here, you know what? I actually have it open right here on my.
So how do you think we get people to? How do you think we get people behind an idea like that? Because I think to a lot of people, it's going to sound so. To us on Twitter, to us on the left, mainstream already, like, we already think about these things every day. But like, how do we package that to the average person, to the person who they can't even think outside of red and blue?
I know.
How do you get it to them?
I'm still working on that, because I tried when I went to a rally for abortion justice on Saturday, and I just tried asking some questions to someone who was clearly a Democrat, and I got called manipulative and got called out with conspiracy theories. So I am working on that. But like, one thing, like, my project is like my mom, who her biggest concern is the climate crisis, but she fucking voted for Joe Biden. That's our climate president. So it's like having a conversation, just, initiating more conversations and doing like what we're doing right now, of being like, hey, so that climate crisis, like, it's getting pretty bad, huh? Yeah. And what did Joe Biden do about it? Diddly squat, huh? We need to do something, Mom. What do you think? Because we don't have a future. And I don't think, because mainstream media isn't covering the climate crisis enough, people are not realizing the urgency that we need to act now. Like what you were saying, like, oh, well, maybe if they'd have a party, a third party being elected in 2022, 2024. We don't have that time to wait. We need to act yesterday. We need to act now. Like, at a minimum, like, we cannot hesitate. We need radical systemic change now in order to ensure our survival. Otherwise,
the way you package that to a lot of people, because when people hear that, sometimes I think a lot of the more mainstream people, they hear that and like, but what do I do? I can't do anything now. Joe Biden's agenda doesn't include those things. We need to wait till the next one. And it's like, I think the things we tell those people is like, we can change Joe Biden's agenda. Like, if enough of us demanded he make this bill for the reconciliation $5 trillion, $6 trillion. If there was actually a movement of people pressuring for such a thing, he would be forced to change his mind. That's what was so frustrating about Forced to Vote to me, was the idea of like, oh, well, they're not going to pass Medicare for all anyway. It's like, but do you not realize that if you hold their feet to the fire and you mobilize the movement to also hold their feet to the fire, like, they will realize that their time is coming short on being a politician. They will realize that, oh crap, this is actually the popular thing. And if I don't get with the program, I'm gone. That's how.
But we don't want them to get with the program.
Actually changes things.
We want them out. We don't want them to get, we don't need to change anyone's mind. We need them to know they have failed and they are no longer needed. Because we, the people, are the ones that clearly need to take back control, seize the means of productions, and get shit back on track so we can fucking have a life.
I think a general strike is like a really big part of doing that, because that's how you actually that's how you get more average people, I think, into the movement to actually see how these things work. Because like Sweden, for example, and I know Sweden doesn't have direct democracy, so they're not the perfect example of this. But in terms of unions, in terms of strikes, they don't even have a minimum wage. There's no minimum wage in Sweden. Yet they still, the lowest paid worker makes $25 an hour because they have industry-wide unions. So it's not like every job has their own union. It's like the carpenters union. It's like the auto mechanics unions, but like 80% union membership. So like even those 20% of people who aren't in a union, those people still get all the benefits of the union because the 80% of the country's union, so the unions are all negotiating all of this stuff for them. And it's like, and America's got 5% of unions in the entire country. And it's like, that is definitely where the change has to happen.
But they can't protest because of, what is it? I'm blanking. Oh my God, Taft?
I know there's teachers who can't protest because there are certain laws, I know.
Unions can't. There's an amendment that restricts union members from striking and taking action. So that's why we need to make sure we promote mutual aid. Because we need workers, not union leadership. That's fucking corrupted as shit. We need workers because this is a working class revolution. This is a class war. Let's be honest. And the working class needs to seize that power with the support of mutual aid. And so I'm seeing, like, how do you think a general strike should work? Okay, Taft Hartley. That's the amendment that says they can't protest or they can't strike. How do you think a general strike should work? So October 15th coming up. If you are currently working and you can abstain from work that day and or abstain from economic activity and or donate and support mutual aid efforts. That is how you can help support the general strike, because y'all, this revolution is coming and this is just the percolating beginning of it. So get excited because this is happening. I do think more people need to know about it. I think I'm going to get on Facebook in the next few days and promote the general strike because I don't think it's been promoted enough on like that platform, because I know a lot of people haven't heard of it besides outside of my Twitter bubble. So we gotta promote this general strike.
So for the general strike on the 15th, is there mutual aid that's already kind of like prepared for people? Because like I know a lot of people who maybe want to participate on October 15th, but maybe they're worried about getting fired and losing their job and not being, because we have here a general strike will only work with mutual aid. Without that, we're fucked. Does the October 15th one have any sort of plans for that?
I tried reaching out to them. I don't think they do. I tried reaching out to them, giving them links to some mutual aids. I asked them to put on their website and or their bio, and they didn't respond. That's why I'm feeling a little nervous about this, because I don't feel like mutual aid has been promoted enough. But y'all, all you have to do is Google search mutual aid near me, and you will find results. That's all you have to do. Like, I know it's people want it right in front of them, but like, take the initiative, do a Google search. This is a very powerful
the fear would
device.
be, though, for those people, it's not about like necessarily needing mutual aid. It's the idea that, so let's say you want to do this October 15th strike, right? And so I, stay home from work that day. My $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year job, they fire me. Off that one day of missing work, they fire me. That's very unlikely. I think a one-day strike most employers are going to be more flexible, but in that scenario, I don't think mutual aid is going to save that person in the way that they need it to. If they're, they have a house, they're barely just making rent, they're barely just making food for their kids, it might be too risky for them, at least for this October 15th one. I think that's the fear that people have, is that if we don't have the general strike with this really strong fund behind it, really big force behind it, you just get scabbed and you're worse off maybe than you were before for some people. And I think finding the way to bridge that gap is really the hard part, because mutual aid can be helpful, but does mutual aid pay you a salary, right? We don't have the mutual aid fund networks yet to pay people, $15 an hour, $20, whatever it is, to supplement the income that they might lose. So I know that's the big problem with strike funds too. When a union goes on strike, they have strike funds for that very reason. But sometimes a tactic by the bosses is to wait them out until they know that their strike fund dries up. You know what I mean? Because then the bosses know, oh, they only have 20 days that they can wait. If we just wait longer than that's like the biggest thing. I don't know how we get the mutual aid network that well organized, but that's the big thing I think we need to do, because it's easy to say, oh, guys, it's just one day, we need mutual aid. You just go look it up, you'll find the mutual aid network. But it's another thing to like make that mutual aid so appealing to somebody that they feel like, okay, like I'm not going to be homeless after we make this decision. Or if it was a mass movement. Like if we had a general strike last summer during the BLM protests, I think more people would have felt comfortable doing it, because you see on the TV, you see in the streets just how many people are out there. And I think that in and of itself is a security net. You know what I mean? Because you realize, well, if we have this many numbers, you know, we actually have pressure. Whereas if it's only 10 of us or 20 of us or 30 of us, they stomp down on you.
But look what happened even with those numbers. We didn't get any. No. We got incrementalism. That's what the Democrats are famous for.
Demands weren't really like tangible. I thought they were like defund the police was the one really firm, tangible demand, but they just shot it down. All they just did is swat it away, and that was it.
And funded them more. And funded them more. They did the exact opposite. So
both parties, 99 senators voted to condemn defund the police.
Yep. Crazy. So we need to get by having more conversations, by promoting mutual aid, I don't know. I don't want to put all my eggs in the basket of mainstream media picking up mutual aid and it becoming that. I think we need to target Susan Sarandon, our queen and goddess, and be like, Susan Sarandon, please, 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 please start promoting mutual aid and get your celebrity friends, get all your rich celebrities donating. I think that's what we can do, because I love cyberbullying on Twitter. I love it. I love it. That's how we can make some demands met.
Well, it's funny, like Susan Sarandon's more likely to listen to us too, because
I think she'd be very sympathetic. She was a Jill Stein
voter in 2016 and 2020. Like she did say, you know, she wanted the revolution to happen. In 2016, she was talking about wanting the revolution to happen. So she's definitely on our side. And I think people like that will know more people who they can reach out to who might have more of the platform. But it's just, you know, I hope this October 15th general strike at least has some sort of an impact. You know, at least there's maybe, I mean, I saw a list yesterday of all the strikes happening across the country. You have the Kellogg strike. You have a strike going on with the staff in Hollywood going on strike for the first time in decades.
Yeah.
And I counted up the numbers because it said how many employees were in each, and it was hundreds of thousands of people who are going on strike just right now.
Yep.
And it's crazy that nobody knows that hundreds of thousands of people across the country are on strike. Now, I think I'm like suspicious that we have like a subtle general strike already kind of happening because of COVID.
Yeah.
You know, because you saw a lot of businesses. I remember before I left Maryland, I drove to like every single little fast food restaurant in my town.
I saw your chain.
And, and every single one of them had a "We need help. We desperately need help" sign. And I think that right there in and of itself is like the rumblings of some sort of general strike. It's not organized. It's very decentralized, very informal, you could say. But if we had something like that formalized, something like that actually centralized to some degree, interconnected, I mean, we would be unstoppable in that type of way. Do you have any last words, Liv? Because I'm going to go. I got a paper I've been procrastinating that I have to do.
No, go do your paper. Thank you so much for having me on, Kobe. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. We'll have to have you on again soon.
Thanks. Bye, y'all.
All righty. And so that was today's episode of the Pro Peace Report. Just going to put my mutual aid banner on the screen in case anybody can help. Like I've said in past videos, I'm currently in Sweden studying abroad. It's been a month and a half into my semester. I haven't gotten my student loans yet at all. They're not going to come until next month at this point because I'm waiting for so many immigration documents to come in that are necessary for me to get it from the university. So if you can donate to my Cash App, ProPeace97, please, 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 that would be so helpful. 50% of any money I haven't gotten any money. I don't really expect to get that much money, to be honest. But if I ever do get money, 50% of it is always going to go to mutual aid, and I'll have an episode at the end of the month, if I do get money, you know, announcing where it's going to go. This month I'm thinking Rome's Tour for the Poor, since his mutual aid work has inspired me the most. But that's it for today's episode. Peace out.